What's up, CyberMDs, and welcome to another lecture. Today we'll be covering dosing and rapid sequence intubation of adult patients. We won't go over all of the information that's on every slide, but the information is there for you to learn from, so please feel free to use that. We'll mainly just discuss the anchor that I use to remember the dosing for both induction and paralytic agents. Let's get started. Alright, first up is etomidate, which is dosed at 0.3 milligrams per kilogram. When it comes to the induction agents, if it has one and only one letter O in the name, then it is 0 point something for the dosing. Again, that's only for our induction agents. So etomidate is 0.3 milligrams per kilogram. I remember this by just remembering that etomidate is 3-tomidate. And I can just turn the E backwards to make that 3, and then I have the dose remembered. So etomidate is 3-tomidate, and it has one letter O as an induction agent, and so it's 0.3 milligrams per kilogram. So you can see here, etomidate is 3-tomidate. Next up is ketamine, which is dosed at 1 to 2 milligrams per kilogram in ideal body weight. Remember that for ketamine, there are no letter O's in the name ketamine, so this is whole numbers we're dealing with. And I remember ketamine dosing by saying that to draw a letter K, I have to draw one line, and then I have to draw two short lines. So for ketamine, it's 1 to 2 milligrams per kilogram. So you can see here on this slide, I have the K, and then on the right side of the screen, I have the K broken down into a 1 and then two separate lines to remind me that ketamine is 1 to 2 milligrams per kilogram. Next up is propofol for an induction agent. Now, propofol has not one, but it has two of the letter O's in the name, so it's not going to be 0 point something. It's in fact going to be 1.5 to 3 milligrams per kilogram, but I just round this up and say 2 to 3 milligrams per kilogram. And I remember this by remembering that propofol has two P's and three letter O's in its name. So 2 to 3 milligrams per kilogram for the 2 and 3 letter P's and letter O's respectively that are in its name. And then lastly, for our induction agents, we have midazolam. Midazolam has one letter O, so remember it's going to be 0 point something for the dosing. And in the case of midazolam, it's 0.1 to 0.3 milligrams per kilogram. Also, something that I've come up with to help me remember that this is 0 point something on the dosing for midazolam is that midazolam is a benzo, so 0.1 to 0.3 milligrams per kilogram. This is pretty similar to ketamine in how I remember how this is dosed. So you draw one line for the start of your letter M, and then you draw 3 lines after that, and that's just how I personally remember that midazolam is 1 to 3, but remember it's a benzo, so it's 0.1 to 0.3 milligrams per kilogram for the dosing in our patients. All right, now we're moving on to our paralytics. So succinylcholine does have the letter O, but remember that letter O rule is only for our induction agents, not for our paralytic agents. Succinylcholine is actually really easy to remember the dosing for, 1.5 milligrams per kilogram, and it's easy to remember once you realize that succinylcholine itself, the word has 15 letters, 1-5, so 1.5 milligrams per kilogram in dosing of succinylcholine. You can see that here, 15 letters, 1.5 milligrams per kilogram again. All right, lastly, we have rocuronium. Rocuronium's dosed at 1 to 1.2 milligrams per kilogram, and this one's a little bit of a cheat, but I actually do quite enjoy this one, especially the challenge of drawing it out on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper for other people when I'm telling them how I remember this. And I remember this by drawing the letter R, On this slide, there's just an overview here of all of the agents, as well as the mnemonic device that we use, the RSI dosing, and whether or not they're induction or paralysis agents. I hope this helps, and I hope that you never have to sit back and think or sit back and look up the dosing for any of your popular induction or popular paralytic agents ever again. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please remember to like, comment, and or subscribe, and leave us some feedback so that we can improve in the future and continue to provide free medical education resources for students all around the world. Thanks so much.